Guys, welcome to the Dr. Cloud Show in our little different time today. As you notice, I am on the road, so we got sort of I'm your traveling journalist out here, except I'm not really reporting on anything other than our well-being, our collective tribe here. How you're doing? How you're feeling? You know, all that stuff that we talk about, you know, like the depression, anxiety, and all that. But finding answers for that, getting you to where you feel better, we hope, and also relationships and achieving goals, all that stuff. That's what we do here, and we're doing it remotely again today while I'm on the road. But I hope this works out well for you, and I hope you call. Let me give you the number, 844-940-2774, 844-940-2774 is the number in this hour to get on the air. Now, remember, this show stays up there 24/7, and you can watch it even when it's not live. And also, we really want you to share it with your friends so we can continue to build an audience and keep doing this. And having said that, I always want to give a shout out and an invitation to our callers, because you give us the stories that we gather around. And, you know, when I think about it, the show really is about stories. It's about your story and all of our stories. And then we go through life, and what do we find? Clinical, relational, performance, that there's stuff we deal with that, you know, there's stress and anxiety and fears and behavior issues we have, or somebody we love has. And then there's the relationships we struggle with. And then there's the, how do I reach my goals and dreams and make life, you know, fruitful? And there's always a story behind that. And one thing that sort of is like that, your story is different than everybody else's story, even though the feelings we have are universal: rejection, abandonment, isolation, loneliness, fear, inspiration, courage, all of those things we can all identify that with. And that's what makes us a family on this program. As an audience, I want to thank you guys for encouraging each other on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, and just taking it to the next level. So here we are, developing herd immunity against dysfunction. That's our goal here, herd immunity. Again, we ought to have a t-shirt. I think we should get a t-shirt, herd immunity. Okay, so speaking of herds, one of the sub-herds of this show, we got our audience, but then some of you are Boundaries.me subscribers. In fact, many of you are. And a special announcement for you that are subscribers to Boundaries.me, and any of you can, you just go to the website, Boundaries.me, and click on how to become a subscriber. We have a new thing we started just today, and it's called One Thing. And the one thing is this: every day, if you're a Boundaries.me subscriber, go check your inbox, because every day we are going to send you, I think that's right. Is that right, Greg? Albie? We send it to them, right? It's not on the site.
It gets sent via email, and it lives on the site
every day, and it's on the site. One thing for that day. So here's what I want you to hear about this, and all the rest of you who aren't subscribers. The principle, okay? The principle is true about life in general. That, you know, we learn about stuff in awareness, but behavior change and growth and improvement comes over a process that has certain ingredients in it. So we need awareness. That's what on Boundaries.me, awareness is all the courses, how to learn the principles of boundaries and overcoming anxiety, and how to face a difficult conversation or do an intervention on an addict, or all those we have 80 courses on there of awareness of the issues. But awareness, we got to learn about something, but then we need a couple more elements. The next thing you need is you need focused attention, something that's going to make me focus on what I learned, okay, in real time as I go through life. All right. You want to teach your kid about, you know, how to eat their vegetables when they're little. The vegetables are important and all this. But then every meal, there's got to be a focus on this is important, right? And then the third thing is deliberate practice. And once you begin to do that, then it becomes built in to who you are, and you have changed. You've grown. You're different. And you don't have to follow some formula, because now you're one of those healthy people in that area, because that actually has become a habit, a character, whatever you want to call it, It's the way you are now. I used to avoid the conflict. Now I pick up the phone and I lean into it and I resolve conflicts. I'm not afraid of them anymore. Well, the way that change happens is by little bitty incremental steps. That's what one thing is designed to do. So every day you're going to get an email. One thing for that day is going to be about a 1 to 2 minute video. Very fast, very fast. I'm going to tell you, here's one thing I want you to do today. Just this one thing. All right? Do that. Then tomorrow I'm going to send you another one. The next day, the next day, the next day. Ongoing. What is going to happen to your life in a year after every day just doing one little thing differently? One little thing. It's going to take you a minute or 2 minutes to watch the little video. And I encourage you, open it up when it hits your inbox. Open it up. Do the one thing. Okay? Now, speaking of one things, one of the things that we do, we started I guess, the last week or so, is we're from the Boundaries Not Me subscribers, we're taking email questions. And each day we've been doing one. So here's one that we got from Emmy. And her question is, what is the difference between alcohol abuse and alcoholism? It bothers me when I read people complain about their husbands drinking and people automatically assume the husband's unalcoholic. What is normal or healthy limit to alcohol, and when does it become alcoholism? And what is a healthy approach for spouses who have issues with their spouse who drinks? It's a great question. And sometimes what you find when you dive deeply into this is some of it is semantics and some of it's really not, depending on where you come from theoretically on this, of what you believe it actually is. Now, we do know that there are really, kind of broadly speaking, okay, you kind of got two groups of people, which you've identified here. Some people have problem drinking. In other words, they drink and it causes problems. Sometimes for them, they don't think it's a problem. I remember a guy that that lived in my dorm when I was a sophomore in college, and every day he would set up happy hour for the whole floor, and he'd pull out all the bottles and put a towel out there on he set up it in his doorway, literally in the dorm. And he was a bartender. He'd serve cocktails. He called it happy hour every day. Probably learned it from his parents. And so, we kind of got worried about him. And it's not like we were, non-imbibers either. It's, college sophomores. But we knew when somebody had a problem and when they didn't. And we said to him one day, dude, you ever think you have a drinking problem? He goes, no. He says, I don't have a drinking problem. He said, I drink, I get drunk, I pass out, no problem. Didn't cause him a problem, he thought, right? But come on. Yes, it does. And when you get a question like this, one of the ways that we identify a drinking problem is when the drinking causes problems. Okay. It either causes the person problems. Generally, where you see it is you begin to see it in performance, right? That it affects their work in some way, or it affects their performance in other areas of life, or it begins to affect their health. And so they're drinking and it starts to interfere with stuff. I see this. I do a lot of work in companies and corporations, and they have cocktail gatherings and this, that, and the other. And you'll see a lot of people that, they're having fun. They're going to a party. They're loving, let's go to happy hour. And everybody, after a day of work, and they're all engaging and talking about stuff. But then there's that one guy, and he starts to cause problems. His behavior gets out of line. And you might read about it in the paper. I mean, you see this in the Wall Street Journal. There all of a sudden there's, there might be some overline stuff with harassment or other things, or it starts to cause functional problems. So somebody's got a drinking problem when it starts to cause problems. And one of the big areas that causes problems is in their relationships. Okay. So when it's affecting somebody, and it's affecting, if you think about those three areas of the pie that you're drinking, is affecting you clinically. It's affecting how you feel. Alcohol can affect, a number of areas of life, cause you to miss work sometimes, or start, interferes with family or friends, or clinically. It gets, people get, alcohol is a depressant, and people get depressed or they get angry, they get hostile when they're not a nice drunk. Sometimes they lose impulse control. They start, sleeping with people they shouldn't be sleeping with, acting out sexually in some way, or spending money, or making unsafe decisions, or they're driving, or, sometimes they'll get DUI. That's a problem. All right. Now, how many of those are alcoholics? Well, depends on how you use the word, but somebody's got a problem, they got a problem. Now, I think it is another category, though, usually, and this is one of the ways people distinguish this, is when somebody starts to build tolerance. Okay. When you build tolerance on a substance, then you actually have, an addictive process going on. And tolerance is basically, it means your system learns to tolerate that level, and you need more in order to get the same effect. And so people that develop tolerance need more and more and more. And here's another big one. A lot of times people will have a drink to kind of, it enhances the party. They feel elevated. The Bible says that God made the wine that cheers the heart of man. It says that, or mankind. It says that in the Psalms. It's talking about all the wonderful things God did. But one of the things he did was he makes the wine that makes the heart of men cheery. Or, sort of like Jesus made more wine at the wedding. Celebrate all this. That's a difference in getting fallen down drunk, right? And also, if you think about that, it's kind of like, make somebody, cheery or whatever. All right. But that's an abnormal state. When somebody's an alcoholic, what you begin to see is an addiction is when they need the drink not to make themselves feel, whatever you want to call it, but they need it to feel normal. So they wake up in the morning, they need a drink to be able to function. See, now you got a different deal going. And, like AA for forever, there's this moving into the disease model, which means that some people's systems metabolize alcohol very differently than other people's systems, and they develop, this dependency on it. And so that's broadly how we think about the difference. But here's the deal. Either way, it's not good. Either way, it's not good. I mean, if you go to there's a few passages in the Bible that actually speak to this, and Paul says, for example, it says, don't get drunk with wine, right? For that is dissipation. You start to lose control. You're out of control. It's just, but be controlled by the Spirit. So when somebody starts to lose self-control, that's a problem, whether it's a problem drinker or an alcoholic. And then you go to the next question, how do you talk about it? Well, you talk about it. You just talk about it, but you talk about it in terms of how it affects you and how it affects the relationship and the reality consequences. You stay away from the shaming, you're an alcoholic, you're bad, blah, 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 blah. You talk about the way that the consequences it is having. Now, generally speaking, if somebody hears that, they go, gosh, you're right, I really drank too much at that party or Thanksgiving, I'm not going to do that again. And they change, then they don't have an addiction, which basically means they can't change. First step of 12 steps is that somebody realizes they're powerless. And once they realize they're powerless, then they realize what they do have the power to do, and that's submit themselves to a program that's going to end up rebuilding their self-control. See the difference? If somebody thinks, oh, yeah, I've never met an alcoholic who said, oh, I can control it. They think they can control it. They can't. And everybody knows they can't. When do they start being able to control it? When they admit they can't control it. Okay, they came to realize in step one, they came to realize that they were powerless over this. Beatitudes start with blessed are the poor in spirit. Okay. So when somebody humbles themselves and realizes I've lost control over this, I don't have self-control, then they can submit themselves to a program that will actually of recovery, which actually will help them to regain their control. And usually, typically, the way that I think about this, somebody's truly an alcoholic, they shouldn't be having even a drink, because it's not long before that one reactivates the whole scenario. And so they have to continue in the program to make sure they stay away from it. Okay, there is kind of our question for the day here. Or actually, we have a few questions. Let me give out the number again, 844-940-2774, 844-940-2774. We actually do, probably because of the time change. We have a couple lines open. If you want to go to those now and call, you can get on the air. 844-940-2774 is our number. We've also got another question that came in by email, and that goes this way. It says, what do you do if your parents seem very controlling and over-involved in your decision? Well, are you 3 years old? Or no, it says, oh, there you are. I'm 29. There is a difference, by the way. Think about this. When you are a child, one of my favorite verses, Galatians 4, says when we're children, we're under guardians and managers. Those are called parents, usually. And you're under them. They have authority over you. They are the governing bodies. It says, until, I love this passage. It's in the book of Galatians in chapter 4. It says, until the date set by the Father, where you get released from their authority. You're not under the government anymore. You are the king or queen of your life. You don't have to ask mom and dad for two things. They're your guardian and manager. So they're not going to guard you anymore. They're not going to protect you anymore. You got to protect yourself. If you figure, you have a couple of drinks, you got to guard yourself from getting drunk, and after two, say no, right? Or you got to manage yourself. You actually have to get your butt out of bed and make it to work. That's managing yourself. So that's what adults do. And the guardian and managership of parenting is about helping somebody reach the age where a parent says, you're one of us. All right. Our questioner says he or she is 29 and lives in a different state than their parents, but can't seem to get along. I've tried boundaries, which makes it worse. I really don't understand that sentence. I have an idea what you mean. You mean they don't like it, is what you mean. But I don't know what it makes worse other than their behavior, which is actually the opposite of boundaries, because you practice boundaries. Their behavior is their behavior. Your behavior is your behavior. So it can't make it worse if you're trying to be in control of yourself. It can only make it better. Now, if you're saying that then they respond to your boundaries by making a lot of noise, I do understand that. And it says they think I'm overweight, and I always feel like they care about others view them, and they want to show off a little bit around others. I guess they want you to look skinny or whatever so they can show you off. And they make comments about my weight, etc. So what do you do? It says, if they do this. Well, there's a lot of things you can do. For instance, I don't know your parents, and I don't know the dynamic, and I'll probably get some letters about this, but so be it. There are some times when we may indeed have unhealthy patterns in our lives. Now, you said that you think theirs is that they want to show you off, but I don't know if that's true or not. So I'm just going to give the broad answer here. But sometimes maybe we have a pattern in our life that's unhealthy. Forget about the appearance thing. It's unhealthy. Maybe they're worried about heart disease. Maybe they're worried about diabetes or something like that. And maybe they're making a comment I don't know, but maybe they're making a comment because they're worried about you. Now, it sounds like that's not true, and you know the flavor of this, but broadly speaking, what I like to do with feedback is I like to ask myself, what's true in what this person is saying? You know, a lot of people will say, well, you hadn't earned the right to give me feedback. I don't think that way. I mean, if I'm driving down the freeway and I'm drifting into the lane next to me, if somebody blows their horn at me, they hadn't earned a right. But I mean, unless I'm going to hit them, but I really like it. If somebody tells me, you know, you could do better if A, B, C, or D. So the first thing, here's what I'm trying to say. If you're not a child in your head, then you're not going to interpret this as parents in control of you. You're going to interpret it as data. So if somebody gives you data like that and you're truly an adult, the first thing I would want you to do, now probably this isn't going to fall on neutral ears here, because usually when parents are doing this and it's felt as controlling, that tells me probably psychologically, you've got to, and please don't take this in a bad way, I mean this for your good. You got to grow up. Okay. I'm not going to wait on parents to change or parents to get mature to be able to get mature. Because what if they don't? See, adults, they're not going to take that as controlling. They're going to take it, if you're an equal, as, well, that's their opinion. It's not my opinion. Well, have a nice day, Mom. It's not going to bother you if you are a psychological equal. Now, if you're under their authority psychologically, it's going to have power. It's going to change your mood. It's going to ruin you. I can't believe they say, you know, we're going to take it like a teenager, right? When my girls were teenagers, every now and then you see, and you know, they'd roll their eyes, and I'd call them back in there and say, okay, you can have a little better attitude than that. We're going to sit here till you do. But they were under my authority, and they were taking something as authoritarian because it was. I was the boss. Well, I wanted them to get to a place where I'm not the boss of you, right? So now I have opinions, hopefully, and they'll go, well, that's your opinion. I have a different one. That's great. That's great. So the first thing I would want you to do is I would want you to fire them psychologically from having any power in your head. It's just their opinion. Then they're not controlling. They're frustrated. They can't control you. You're just going to say, well, I know you think I'm overweight. I like my weight. So did you see did you see that Lakers game the other day? Change the topic. It's no big deal because you've gotten your power back. So the best thing any of us can do with somebody that is offensive is get to the place psychologically where they don't have the power to offend us. So stop giving them that power. Now, having said that, you said when you do that, I don't know what you do. If you respond like a teenager, then that's giving fuel on the fire and you get into an adolescent struggle as a 29-year-old. But if you are approaching, so I said the first thing you would do is become an adult. And then if you say to them, you know, well, thank you for your opinion, Mom. Thank you for your opinion, Dad. I'm really comfortable with my weight. And frankly, I really don't want to talk about this. So you might have your opinions about my weight, but you're more than free to keep them to yourself because I get it. I understand what you think. I want you to know I have heard you. Heard you. Here, I'll write it down. Hold it up. I heard you. You think I'm overweight. Do you understand that? I understand. I understand. Now, since I've heard you, we're not going to talk about that anymore. Now, you can bring it up, but if you do, you will hear something on the other end of the phone called a dial tone, meaning metaphorically, I'm really not going to talk about this. And if you do talk about it, I'm going to go, Mom, I don't want to talk about this. Let's change the topic. If you want to talk about it, I'll call you back when you don't want to talk about it. Okay. That's the boundary. Now, if you say it makes matters worse and they escalate, they throw a tantrum and all that, then you have to say, I'm sorry that you get disturbed when I don't want to talk about this, but sorry that's frustrating to you. But when you can figure out a way for us to have a relationship that doesn't involve my weight, then I'd love to have that relationship. So that's kind of a good way to think about it. You said that they want to show you off. Sort of like they're pageant parents at 29. I don't know. Send them a Barbie doll, maybe. Say, that might be a good idea. Send them a Barbie doll and say, okay, if you don't want to talk to me, I sent you a Barbie doll. You can set it up on the mantle and talk to it. But when you don't want to talk to me, I'm the one that doesn't look like that. So love to talk to you. That's what I would do. And if you notice, I'm a little lopsided on that. I'm an advocate, an ambassador for adulthood. An ambassador for adulthood, which means in this scenario, I'm not going to spend my energy trying to get your parents to change. I'm going to spend my energy trying to get you to change, get you to grow up so your parents don't have that much power in your head where they can't ruin your day. They can't ruin your day. Oh, Mom, come on. I know you think that. Blah, blah, blah. Doesn't affect you. That's the goal of boundaries. Okay, let's go to Emily, who's calling us from California, and she has a dating question. Emily, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Where you live in California?
In the Fresno area.
Fresno area. Oh, you got that smoke up there.
Yeah, there's a lot of smoke. Yeah. I don't live directly in the mountains, but like the creek fire is only about like 2 hours away from us. Yeah.
Sorry, it's hard. So tell me how I can help you with your dating life.
Yeah. So
Why don't we? Hey, I got it. Emily, I got it. Let's put you on the screen and we can take calls. You know, guys, here's Emily. Send your number.
I don't know. I'm already talking to two guys, but I don't know what that's gonna lead to. So I don't know. I mean, yeah.
Well, that's the thing about dating. That's what's so much fun about dating. You don't know where it's gonna lead to.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, yeah. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, so kind of I'm like very new to dating. Like I've been asked out in the past, but it's either been like by guys who I wasn't interested in, or people that did not meet like my non-negotiables.
What's a non-negotiable?
So for me,
wait, stop. Now you said you get asked out, right?
Just a couple of times, but this is like in the past.
All right. And so you weren't interested in, did you go out?
No. This was like in high school. So it was just like, it was like two people that just weren't really mature. And I think at that time in my life, I wasn't really focused on dating and I didn't really see the point in it. I mean, like it was something like I do desire to be married someday, but it wasn't something like until after like high school, I kind of was like, okay, I'd be open to it. Does that make sense?
Did you come from did you come from some sort of culture that poo-pooed dating?
That what?
That poo-pooed dating? It was down on dating, you know, like I kissed dating goodbye or something like that?
No, not like that. My parents actually, they never like, it was weird because they never really like talked much about the topic of dating. They were just kind of like, these are my situations that happened when I dated someone in high school. We highly suggest against it, but we don't necessarily say like you can't date in high school.
Oh, really?
So from that, I was just like, I guess like I don't really see the point. I mean, for some people it works out at that age. I feel like when you're that age, you're so young. Yeah.
I think I've got two girls. They're kind of through that age now. They're 18 and 20. But I always encourage them in their dating life. I thought it was a really important stage. To learn about the world and different people, and some are safe and some are not safe. You want to avoid certain kinds of people. What are you interested in?
Yeah.
And all of that. So as a parent, I saw it as a very important developmental step. But so what is your question now?
Okay, so I I met these two guys on this Christian dating app, and I have talked to both of them. And I have talked to both of them over video chat, and they both live in California, but like a couple hours away from me. And so I think for me, because this is so new for me, and I have gleaned insight from friends that I look up to that are either have dated in the past or are dating currently, or I even have a friend that's married. So they've given me really like good advice in that regards. I think for me, it's just as a person, I tend to look too much towards like, okay, like worst case scenarios, or like
what's the worst case? What do you mean a worst case scenario?
I don't know, like even I think just the way I approach situations, if I don't know like what it's gonna lead to, or I don't have a clear picture, then
of course
sometimes
you don't. Whoa, Emily.
I know it's not realistic.
No, you don't know. You're advocating. So what do you mean you know? Do you know? Okay, look, Emily.
Yeah.
Have you ever been shopping?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever been shopping because you needed a dress for
Yeah.
a certain event, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever been shopping just because you need some clothes? It's not that specific.
Yeah.
Did you know what it was going to lead to?
No.
No. You got to go look at all the stores and look at all the racks.
Yeah.
And what's this going to cost me? Is that I can't afford that. That's some bad behavior, right? Or wow, this is a good deal. Or, well, that's so okay. So you don't know where it's going to lead. So what's wrong with that? What's the worst case scenario? You wasted an evening. How could it even be a waste? You learned something.
That's true. That's true.
Probably,
yeah.
Probably the guy paid for dinner. I mean, what a deal.
That is true.
I know I'm old fashioned.
Yeah.
Right? So what's the question? I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of barriers here.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just I always sometimes like in other situations in life, or like sometimes like going into situations that are new for me, sometimes I overcompensate in my mind and think like, is this realistic? And I know it's good in a sense to think in that way sometimes, but I have recognized that sometimes when I do that too much, I like prevent myself from a good opportunity.
You think?
So, yeah. So I think for me, it's just like, I really want to meet these guys in person, but like getting to that point and them having, like, I know I would have to like see if they have that interest as well. And then figuring
Whoa. See if they have what interest?
In like meeting in person, because we've only talked over like video chat. So like to be able to evaluate like, oh, like this, like if this is something I want to move forward in or continue.
But how
like
big
a person
of a
I want to
risk,
continue.
How big of a risk is it just to move forward to go have coffee with somebody?
Yeah.
What the heck is at stake?
I know.
Come on, Emily.
I'm trying to think.
I
know. I think it's. I think because I want them to pursue me.
Stop. I'm gonna give you a rule. Okay. Don't do anything.
Okay.
Don't do anything unsafe.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So you don't give away a lot of information. You meet somebody in a public space after you've kind of somewhat vetted them. I don't want you to do anything unsafe. But if it's not unsafe, what the heck have you lost?
That's true.
but what are the possibilities of what you could gain?
That's
You
true.
might
Yeah.
learn, I thought I liked a certain type, but the more I listen to them talk, I don't really like that person. I don't like that type.
Yeah.
Or I never thought a nerd could be so interesting. I might like nerds.
Yeah, that's true.
Or. I wrote a book called How to Get a Date Worth Keeping.
Okay.
You're not going to like it, I promise you. But I want you to read it. And I want you to be open to it. Because I think
Definitely.
it's going to challenge you a little bit. Did I answer your question, by the way?
Yes. I think another part of a piece of it is like kind of setting up that initial date to meet in person. I know people have different views on that. I feel like the guy should pursue in that, but I also don't think the girl, I think the girl can still initiate in that. So I've just been trying to figure out that piece and with schedules and everything too.
Why don't you just say, if you're getting to know somebody through all the, chatting or whatever, why don't you say, hey, you sound like fun. Let's meet for coffee. How hard is that? How hard is that?
That is true.
You need me to type it out?
True.
I'll text it to you. You can cut it and paste it.
No, yeah. I think some people, they overcomplicate that. They tell me different things. And I'm just like, why?
Why? Okay. I hope I answered your question. I want you to get my book. In fact, here's what you do. Go to boundaries.me.
Okay.
Right? You can sign up to be a subscriber for free for 14 days. Anybody can do this for free for 14 days. So that's long enough. I just put up there an entire thing on how to get a date worth keeping. And you can go watch it. And then call me back.
Hey, Henry, it's coming out on Friday.
It's coming out on Friday. All right. So sign up now and take a look at the rest of the site. There's enough there to keep you busy till Friday. All right, Emily. You know what? I'm going to give you one more piece of feedback. All right? We've had a little date here, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We got to talk.
Yeah.
That's what a date is.
Yeah, that is true.
I like you. I'd like to talk to you. And I'm sure a bunch of other guys would too. So there, go have coffee.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Good luck. Thank you for your call. Oh my gosh. People overthink this dating thing. Okay. If you're not going to do anything dangerous, then go learn. Go out with a bunch of people. Learn what people are like. Learn what you like. Learn what you don't like. You're going to grow in the process. Take a look at how to get a date worth keeping. Go on boundaries.me and sign up before Friday. Take a look. Okay, Georgie is calling us from San Diego. Welcome to the program, Georgie.
Cloud, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Hi, Dr. Cloud. How are you? Oh, good. I'm good, thanks.
Good.
Yes.
What's your question?
Well, I've had a friend for 25 years who I considered a best friend, and we would go out to dinner or lunch, and we would talk about, all different kinds of things, being best friends. And we had a bunch of girls get together, and we were talking about, if all of us lived together, nobody would have to do just the laundry by themselves. We would all pitch in, and we've just talked about this kind of stuff throughout the years. Well, she called me about 7 months ago, and her son...
Y'all all get a big house together? You and a bunch of other women are going to get a big
No.
roommates?
This was just, a bunch of us girls got together for dinner one night. We were talking about, how women take care of the majority of all the chores in the house, and what would it be like if a whole bunch of women lived together, not one person, would be responsible for any one thing.
Right. That's what I said. Am I not understanding this right? A bunch of 5 or 6 of you rent a big house and you all move in. Is that what you mean?
No. I'm just, let's see. 4 of us went out to dinner.
Okay.
And we were talking about, husbands, they don't do a lot at home.
Oh,
and
you're
what would
married.
it be? Yeah, I am.
Oh,
yeah.
wait a minute. Whoa. Now we're talking about a different land. You're talking about, so all the couples and their kids all move in together in one house?
No, let me back up and start all over again.
Okay, but try to be
So
brief.
my girl. Okay. So anyway, my girlfriend moves in, and all this time for 25 years, I thought that she was this big go-getter. She's got a full-time job. I have a full-time job.
Wait a minute. Stop. I'm still confused. She and her husband moved in with you and your husband?
No, just her and her son.
She and her son moved into your house with you and your husband.
Yes. And
Okay.
the reason why we have been best friends is because we're both very practical, and we do or did a lot of things together, and she keeps house like I keep house, neat and clean. She moves in and she does absolutely nothing. She doesn't help me vacuum. She doesn't help me dust.
Have you asked her?
This sounds petty.
Have you asked her?
No, but that's why I'm calling you, because she'll just step right over the vacuum cleaner as I'm vacuuming. Or if I'm cleaning, oh yes, and she never asks, can I help you? We also took in her son, who had an accident in the bathroom one day that I was cleaning up, and she goes, what are you doing? And I went, well, he happened to poop in the tub. And she goes, oh, and she just kept walking. She goes, he didn't mean to do that.
How old is he?
So he's 33, but he's a little emotionally and physically handicapped.
Okay.
Did I confuse you again?
No, I just wasn't expecting that. So,
right, I wasn't either. So all the things that her and I have discussed over the years of what we would do, if we moved in together as we got older, should I say. She is not this person.
Okay, so what is the question? You got a freeloader who's not helping out, not carrying her weight, and she's broken the expected deal. So that's pretty
big
clear.
Time. And
so what's the question? What's the question?
What do I do about it? I mean, she pays her rent on time, but she helps with nothing. I don't. It's so awkward. This is so awkward.
What do you mean? Do you want me to? What do you do about it? Well, I can think of a couple of very obvious things. I mean, obvious things that are right in front of you. You could do nothing. Okay, you could continue to do all the work, clean up the poop, but you're frustrated. All right. B,
very, and I'm hurt.
Hurt?
I am hurt because I could never do that to somebody. Just walk over a vacuum cleaner.
You couldn't, but she can. Did y'all talk about this ahead? Did y'all talk about this ahead of time? That she would help with the vacuuming, cleaning the poop, taking care of her son. Did y'all talk about all that?
Nope.
Okay.
No, because her house was always clean. And we would always talk about if we were older and lived together.
Okay,
we wouldn't,
I get it.
One
okay,
person,
here's the second thing that you could do. And I would say it this way. Okay, I would try to give up the hurt, because I'm not going to judge the hurt, but I'm just going to say it's not helpful, right? It's not going to solve anything.
Okay.
So what I would say is, I would say something like, you know what, I've become aware of something. I think we went into this deal with really different assumptions. It sounds like, at least let me speak for myself. I went into this deal with some assumptions that I was wrong about. I thought and forgive me for assuming this, but I thought we were going to go into this and we were going to actually share in the responsibilities. Okay. That's not what happened. And we didn't really talk about it. So, I guess shame on me for not talking about it. But at this point, what I've learned is this isn't what I really thought I was signing up for. And so I'd like to hit pause because I like your company. I love being around you. But I really, if we're going to do this, I want to have some very, very clear expectations of dividing up the chores. And besides paying rent, okay, you're paying rent. There's no add-on fee here for maid service, okay? So besides dividing up the chores, let's talk about what are we expecting? What's each other going to do? Okay? And if we can agree, and here's the phrase, I want you to write this down, okay? Mutually agreed upon expectations.
Expectations.
But
I've been running around for 2 days saying that.
Yeah, but you forgot the first two words.
Mutually agreed?
Yeah, mutually agreed upon. You guys did not have mutually agreed upon expectations. So you're going to say, BFF, if we can agree on these expectations and then we can both live by them, I think we can have pretty fun time here. But we need to make sure that we agree on the expectations. And then so think about what you desire, and different people's expectations are different. Couples have to do this. My wife and I have to have mutually agreed upon expectations. What's she going to be responsible for? What am I going to be responsible for? And a little bit of a defensive sexist comment here when you said, women usually always do. Well, come on, there's some guys that help out too. So don't put us all in that one bucket. But I want you to get some agreed upon, because, for example, there's no right or wrong here. You may love to cook. She may hate to cook. So
that's exactly right.
That's great. But if you're going to do the cooking, then she could do the shopping, couldn't she? Or she could learn how to be a sous chef. She could chop the cucumbers.
Right.
Or while you're doing that, she could be vacuuming. There's a lot of different solutions to this, but you got to get some mutually agreed upon expectations. And then I'm going to give you one more tip, okay? And that is, you've got to, when you do this, say, okay, let's go do this, but we have one more thing. If after 30 days, well, let's say before that, let's check in every week and see how we both feel about whether or not the expectations are being met. And then after 30 days, let's revisit our decision.
Okay.
And if we're not happy with it, we're going to go back to doing something we used to do very well together. And that was have dinners and gripe about these guys that don't do anything. Because you did well.
Right. That's true. Yeah. Right.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
There you go.
Have a good day.
Good luck with that. 844-940-2774. Okay, that reminds me of being a graduate student. When I was a graduate student, talk about a recipe for a nightmare. 5 guys living in a house as graduate students together. Oh boy. I mean, if you want to create chaos, right? So we noticed that the kitchen did not clean itself up. And your chances of finding a clean dish after a certain amount of time, like half a day or 3/4 of a day, were not great. Okay. And your chances of finding any space to operate, I mean, the place is a mess. So, and we nagged everybody and, blah, 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 blah. Well, everybody's overwhelmed and we're graduate students and we got way more homework and second, third jobs sometimes and all this. So boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Boundaries have consequences. When love doesn't work, you got to go to the law, right? So we made a law. And here's what we did. It worked like a charm. Worked like a charm. We took masking tape and we divided up the sections on the counters. Okay. And each person had a section. And so here's how it worked. When you used a dish or a pot or a pan, then you didn't have to clean it up if you made lunch or dinner or afternoon snack or even breakfast. All you had to do was take that and put it in your section. You could leave it all day. But here was the rule. If by 11 p.m., your section was not absolutely cleaned up, anybody was free to go wash your dishes. And if they did, you owed them $20. Now, hey, back when I was in graduate school, $20 was a lot of money. I mean, that's what, probably back then, that's at least, like 3 hours of wages on a job. Whatever, minimum wage was back then, or what you got paid in the crappy jobs we were doing. $20? Are you kidding me? We needed that money. So here's what started to happen. At about 10:58 every night, the line started to form of people hoping to find a mess. Boy, does that change the chemistry. From, I hope I don't find a mess at these blank, blank, blanks left in here, to I hope I find a mess. Because if I find a mess, I get to clean it up. The guy owes me $20. That'll work. Get some consequences. Boundaries. Okay, Jessica, who is calling us from Chicago. And
Hi.
Jessica, welcome to the program.
Hi, Dr. Hancock. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. How can I help you?
So I think my husband is here. I hope it's okay. I don't know if you want to just have me talking or you can have him talk as well. Our situation is we have a 17-year-old daughter, and I know you have very similar age of kids. And she was diagnosed with ADHD and general anxiety when she was in middle school. And we seem to managing everything okay. But last year she had a boyfriend, and recently they broke up. I didn't realize until they broke up that he was emotionally abusive and manipulative. And they actually broke up a month and a half ago. It was an ugly breakup. And afterwards, she was going through some very hard time and decided that a lot of her issue has to do with us too protective and controlling, and decided that she needs a lot more freedom. And then she started demonstrating a lot of radical behaviors. So long story short, I think a month ago, she decided to stay with a friend that we were able to monitor her locations. And then we really felt that was not safe. Her friend was not stable. So we had her came back home. And then during the last, I want to say 10 days, she started showing very impulsive behaviors. She would call friends to pick her up late at night and would not respect the boundary that we asked her to come home. And then over the last week or two.
No, wait a minute. Stop. Hold on a second. Stop for a second. She went to live with somebody else for a while, and that was with your permission, or she ran away kind of against your permission and lived with somebody for a while?
I think she wanted to go. We cannot stop her unless we call the cop. At that point, we were not sure that was wise thing to do. So with our permission and understanding with her friend's mom, we had agreement that she can stay there for a few days.
Gotcha. Okay. So this was okay with you. All right. And so then
Yes,
she started calling you and asking you to come pick her up?
She had a job. She would occasionally say, I want my independence. So I said, then you need to get arrangement to go to work by yourself. And then that's the time I started realizing she actually hang out with someone who sells drugs, who is 23 years old, and would pick her up to go to work. At that time, we request her to come home, and then she started displaying alarm. At the same time, we also sent her to a PHP program to get help, and she started out voluntarily, wanted to be involved. And then we took her to a camping trip. She was very positive. We felt our girl was back. But right after we returned from the camping trip, she started spiral down by connecting with whoever she barely knew to engage in some behaviors that we absolutely not our upbringing or her value at all. So we knew she just went down the spiral path. And then a couple of days ago, when she wanted to go out again with some boys, demanded to be driven, and we refused, and she just basically walked out of the house at 10 o'clock. And then we were able to get her back home. And then midnight, she called this person, 23 years old drug dealer, who actually had raped her, to pick her up. So we had the cops involved.
Whoa. He had raped her?
We overheard it. She explains to her friend. They were in the car, two brothers. She continued to tell them no, but she didn't know what to do. She felt bad, and they did something to her. So that's our impression. She was taken advantage of, and she didn't acknowledge to us. And I think she's denial. It's a rape.
But then the instance that you're talking about a moment ago, you said that they called her after that and she went out again, or not? Was that the first?
She called them. She was actually the one continued to reach out to them, and they're still in connection and asking for a ride and think they are friends to her.
You said the cops, you got the cops involved, you said?
We had the cops involved to get her to back home and that guy to leave that night.
So it was reported then, and they checked. The cops know all about this.
Yes, but the cops doesn't take anything regarding the rape issue yet, and that was not our first priority at that moment. And next morning, she was ready to run out the house again in the morning after.
Stop. And the cops know about the rape issue.
I think so.
What do you mean you think so?
I think, did we say that?
I've mentioned, this is Andy, mentioned it to the cops and did not at that moment decide to press charges because we weren't clear. It was secondhand, and so it wasn't taken down officially, with the person who may have done it.
Okay, so it was reported to the police.
Verbally.
It was, verbally mentioned clearly, but it was not an official,
So next morning, I took her phone away. We cut off her communication with people, and she walked out the house. So we decided to call the cops again to get her, and she escaped back to home, locked herself in the bathroom. The cop had to come into the house to talk with her and finally take her through the ambulance to an ER.
Okay.
And following that, she has been staying in an inpatient treatment center as we figure out what's our plan of action.
Great. So she's in the hospital right now.
Yes.
Okay. She's under psychiatric care.
Yes.
Okay.
And
because there's so much in here that I was going to say, this girl really, really needs a psychiatric evaluation, because you're seeing erratic, impulsive behavior that some of which can sound kind of characterological, but some of it can sound reactive to trauma, and some of it can actually border on some other things that could involve some psychiatric diagnoses that sometimes kick in about that age. And so this is a mixed bag, and I would want a very good psychiatrist to evaluate her. And also, given the impulsivity and the level of danger and stuff, I'm really glad she's an inpatient. That's what, if it were my daughter, I would want her in a hospital right now.
Right.
Okay,
so
what is your question?
Yeah.
What is the question?
So I think our question is, I know the hospital will not keep her there long term, and we really agree that we need to get her a program. And we were trying to see on the level of depth, do we need to go to another inpatient treatment long term, or how do we find a good references for good psychiatrist that is Christian-based? And I don't know if that matters or not at the first stage. And we have a hard time finding good program to plug her into and then have a family session, because she continued to think we are the cause of her problem.
Where do you live?
We are in North Chicago, Evanston area.
North Chicago. Okay. First of all, let me answer it generically. I can't answer the question like, what does she need from here without the evaluation, right? Because the things you've mentioned, they kind of, theoretically, they kind of cross over several diagnostic categories. Some of those can be handled very well in an outpatient intensive kind of way, but some of them would need probably some sort of inpatient stabilization period, depending on how long they keep her there. And then some of them possibly could need a longer term, more residential kind of program for someone her age. That would be what the good evaluating psychiatrist would do, and the team. So I don't know the hospital she's in. I don't know them. I don't know how good they are. But what I would really do is get involved with the treating psychiatrist and ask about all of those options, and ask, is this something that can be treated, outpatient? Is this something that she needs more inpatient, short-term inpatient? Typically we think in the, let's call it 30 days range, but sometimes a longer-term residential kind of setting is really good. So really, I couldn't evaluate that from here, right? But a good psychiatrist could. Now, in terms of where you send her, usually people, in a good hospital, they have that network of, and that's what the team there helps you to do, is help find the next step for her and a treatment plan. And what you want to do is make sure you really press for what will her aftercare look like? Where does she need to go from here? And I would want to know kind of, what's the medical side of this? Is she bipolar, for example, or is, what's going on? Is this PTSD from a possible rape, or whatever it is? And that's what they would help you evaluate. And in terms of kind of where to send her, what I would want to do is I would, and you mentioned you wanted something Christian based. I would find, and typically you find this from pastors or larger churches that are very well networked, is they usually have a good list of the local psychiatrists and psychologists there who are connected to the networks that would know where to send her. And that would be what I would ask. So does that answer your question? Hope that's helpful to you.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And just off the top of my head, near you, for example, well, I probably shouldn't mention names because I hadn't been in touch with those hospitals for a while, and I don't know currently how they're doing. But there are several in the Midwest that anyone connected would know about. So I'd call the pastor, I'd call my doctor, I'd find a good psychiatrist and local psychologist and have them, you might want to get a second opinion and evaluation and then utilize their networks. And I'm glad that this has been reported to the police because that's serious.
And by sending her to an inpatient treatment, we're not being controlling. Her situation is severe, right?
Well, I don't know because I haven't evaluated her, but a psychologist could, hearing her side, hearing your side, I do not hear you as controlling at all. When somebody, sometimes, especially a child, and she is a child, when they're out of control, somebody's got to take control, and that's parents. And so if my daughter were doing very impulsive, destructive behaviors, absolutely, I would step in and do something. And she might scream, control, control, control. I don't think I've ever, and having done that, I used to run a psychiatric hospital company where we had multiple psych units, all over the Western United States. And I don't think I've ever admitted, well, that's not true. There aren't many teenagers that I've ever admitted to a hospital who didn't scream that their parents were controlling them by putting in the hospital. Of course they're going to do that, but they don't make the decision. See, she's out of control right now. That doesn't mean we don't listen to her. Doesn't mean we don't take her input. We don't mention why a lot of times she may feel like she's being controlled when she's not, because she hasn't established her own autonomy yet. We don't know. On the other hand, there may be some things that you're doing that, she needs a little more freedom. I don't know without knowing her, but absolutely as a parent, when she's engaged in destructive behaviors, like calling people that hurt her and asking them to come pick her up, somebody's got to step in and take charge. And now she's at an age where you absolutely can do that. In a few years, you can't.
Right.
So I'm going to encourage you to be the parent here, and I'm going to be on the side of a parent being a parent. And I don't think that's controlling at all.
Thank you.
And if you are being controlling, a good shrink's going to tell you that. I've told many parents that.
Right.
Back off, give her some breathing space. But right now, she doesn't need breathing space as much as she needs protection. Sounds like to me without evaluating her.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then maybe some family therapy.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, you know what? We have a listening family out there we're talking to right now. And these people, I have seen them on Facebook. They are a praying family. And I'm going to ask that family to pray for your daughter and pray for you guys. Because she's got parents that care. And I think there could be a good resolution, good outcome here for her. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
What a hard thing it is for parents of teenagers because you're going to get accused of being controlling. You know why? Because they're in a middle phase of you're trying to negotiate. I want to give more control to them, but when I do, they got to use it responsibly. And when they don't, I got to reel them in. And that, that's parenting. It's just the job. So anyway, heart goes out to you, but yeah, I would hope she gets some good treatment. All right, guys, I think we are, I think we're out of time here. We are. This goes so fast. You guys are, I love our listening family. You always bring us such meaningful dilemmas. Dilemmas are hard, but they're meaningful. There's so many parents out there listening right now that can identify. Maybe it hadn't gone to that phase, right? But you struggle with setting limits and when to step in and when not to. Maybe some of you are out there dating or not dating. Like Emily. Remember Emily? Come on, Emily. Let's go get some dates. Come on. You can do this. Or having to negotiate unmet expectations. How many of us aren't in some relationship right now that our expectations, I thought we had a deal. I thought we had an agreement. I'm doing all the vacuuming here, metaphorically speaking. We got to hammer that out with a friend. Anyway, you guys are the best. And one more tip. go to boundaries.me and sign up, and you'll see the one thing email come in every day. It's different than our daily. If you're on our email list, by the way, you're going to get kind of pretty regular emails with little videos almost every day of some tip or something about life. But if you become a boundaries.me subscriber, then you're going to get the specific tip that's constructed to be a tip every day to take you on a path. And so go check that out at boundaries.me. All right, guys. Tomorrow, I'm on the road. So we've been talking about the schedule here, and I can't remember. We did talk about this. I think tomorrow we are at our normal 10 a.m. Pacific time. At least that's what I have planned now. If we change that, we'll post it. But tomorrow I plan on being right here or somewhere, maybe out on a street corner, at 10 o'clock Pacific, 12 o'clock Central. Is that right? Yeah. Wait a minute. That's not right. Will I be at 10 o'clock? Yeah. No. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to look at my calendar here. Let's see. If I am, what time would this be? It's going to be at 11 o'clock Pacific. That's when it's going to be. 11 o'clock Pacific. 12 o'clock. No, 1 o'clock. Help! Somebody help me.
11 a.m. Pacific, 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock East Coast.
Thank you very much.
12 o'clock Mountain.
I appreciate that. You know what, Albie? When it's time for the show, just call me. I'll hop on. All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good evening.